You know what, for my GCSEs, I did leave a lot of it until the last minute, I won't lie. And I ended up getting 5 9s, 4 8s, and then the rest was 7. So I did alright, I didn't do too bad. I'm gonna just tell you guys exactly what I did to get myself in a good situation. Because I left it at the last minute, bro. Like, I did so much revision within the last couple of weeks. So, let's just get into it. Now, if you're watching this, it's likely that you've probably got a week or maybe 2 weeks, or maybe you're actually just started your exams and you're trying to figure out what are the best things to spend your time on. I'm not going to waste your time. Let's just get straight to it. So by this point, if you've left your revision until the last minute, right, there's probably a lot of topics that you do not have time to go through, okay? There just simply isn't enough time to get through it all. So what I suggest is, if you're struggling in a subject, if you're getting like a 4 5 or maybe like a low 6, right, and you're trying to really bump it up, right, what I suggest is, number one, of course, doing papers, but that's the generic advice, okay? When you do a paper, right, a lot of the problems that I see, because I actually tutor people for GCSEs, right, people don't know what they don't know. Like, you know that you're probably struggling in some topics, but you are slightly unsure on what exactly. You should be doing past papers, right? And as you go through the paper, with a piece of paper next to you, a different one, write down what question you had trouble with. Write down what topic that comes under. And very quickly, you can start to see a trend. And you don't even have to do the paper. Just go through the paper, right? Go through several papers. Maybe like, let's say you're rising biology, right? Go through like 5 different papers. Just skim through them. Skim through the questions. After reading a question, you pretty much know if you can answer it or not. You pretty much know straight away. And now, by going through it all, you're going to have a list of questions that you know that when you look at it, you don't know what to do. That's what you need to work on. That's the quickest way to figure out what you're struggling with. Because a lot of you will be like, I know I need to revise. What do I revise? There's so many topics. That's how you do it. You just print off, or you just go on your computer, get a ton of papers, go through all of them, skim through them, and then just write down what topics the questions that you're unfamiliar with come under. And then now you've got topics that you need to work on. And the ones that come up the most, the ones that you're the most unsure on, are the ones that you focus on first, just logically. Also, some exams are sooner than others. So, for example, with the subjects like maths, right? If you're doing standard GCSE maths, you've got 3 different papers, right? 2 calc and 1 non-calc, right? You know that you have a certain paper first. Now, you don't know what's going to be in it. But what I recommend you doing is that if it's a subject that there's quite a lot of topics and they spread the topics randomly into different papers like maths, right? As soon as you come out of paper 1, what you should be doing is you should get a piece of paper and write down all the topics that came up in that test. Because let's just be logical here. If it's already come up in the first one, right, it's unlikely to come up in the second one. Yes, it still can, but now you have a list of topics that are less likely to come up. And if some of the topics that didn't come up in the first one, right, they are definitely going to be more likely to come up in the second one, which gives you more direction in terms of what you should be revising. Also, if you're doing GCSE maths, buy this calculator. This is the Class Whiz, right? If you haven't got it already, because you can solve quadratics and stuff. And I made a whole video on how to exploit that thing for your GCSE maths. I'll leave it over here. So definitely get that if you're sitting maths, which you all of you are sitting maths. Sick, right? So now you've got a rough idea of what topics we need to be going through, okay? Because you've been skimming through the papers. By this point, right, I'm not gonna lie, flashcards, mind maps, all that stuff, you should only be doing it as a light revision. That when you're sitting down at your desk to work, you should not be doing flashcards. In my opinion, you should not. You should be drilling, like, with this close to the exam, you should just be drilling questions now. And learning the mark schemes, understand how the mark schemes work, because, think about it, you need to play the system. People don't talk about this. You're playing GCSEs and A-levels, bro. They're a system. You need to understand how to play the system. How do you play the system? Well, think about it from an examiner's perspective, bro. The examiner is going to be going through hundreds of papers to mark, right? The more messy you lay out your work, the more likely it is they'll just discard your marks. Think about it. Put yourself in their shoes, right? If you're an examiner, right, and you're going through a paper, yeah? And this student has their working all over the place, right? Understand that as they go through it, they're going to be referring to the mark scheme as they go through it. If you understand how the mark schemes lay their questions out, now you have an idea of how you should lay out your answers, okay? Because that's what the examiners are going to be referring to. Do you see where I'm coming from? You shouldn't be studying GCSE biology as in, I need to learn all these topics for my biology exam. That's not how you approach it. How you approach it is, I'm studying GCSE biology for AQA, and this is paper 1, which has these topics, and I've also got my triple paper, which has these topics, and I've been going through it, and I've been referring to the mark scheme after I do a paper, and I see exactly how they lay it out. Because the closer your exam looks like to the mark scheme, the better. The more your answers emulate what the examiners see, the better, because it's just going to be easier for them to mark you. You want them to just give you the marks, just throw the marks at you. So you have to lay your answers out in a way. So as you're going through papers, right, even if you get the answer right, understand how the mark scheme comes across. Understand how the mark scheme is really working with the exam, because that's what they're referring to as they go through it. So these are little intricacies that people don't really talk about enough, I feel. And that's going to be different for each exam board. So for Edexcel, for AQA, for OCR, they're all going to be slightly different. So look at the one that is going to refer to you. Now, by this point, as I said earlier, we're just not going to have time to revise some of those topics. And as I said earlier, as you go through those papers, as you skim through, you have an idea of what needs work on. The really difficult ones that you know that are going to take a long time to understand and get the marks on, bro, just leave them. Focus on the topics that you can fix like this, because you need to just be picking up marks now, right? We need to just focus on quality, right? Because you haven't got all the time in the world now. We need to be focusing on the topics that you can fix quite quickly. That's what you need to be focusing on the most. Now, in terms of I told you flashcards, that kind of stuff. When you're in the car, for example, and you're going to school, or maybe you're going somewhere on the weekend, you got some family thing, or maybe you're coming back from school, right? Or maybe you know you need to revise, but you feel really burnt out and lazy. That is when you do some light revision. You do a bit of Quizlet if you want. You do a bit of Anki, nothing crazy, right? And you just go through the motions. You go through the motions, and now you've got probably a list of topics that you need to work on. You can go through that on Quizlet, for example. But that is light revision. That is the revision that you do when you honestly can't be asked to do anything. You're literally dead, but you know you need to work, right? When you're just not feeling like it, but you still want to get a little bit done, that's what I recommend, because that's what I did, and it did work for me in my sciences. It definitely works for for chem and bio, in terms of all the facts you need to know. So that's what I'd recommend. That's pretty much it in terms of my 1 week survival guide. I hope that's been helpful. And bro, don't go watch another video, bro. I swear to God, do not go watch another. You've already procrastinated your revision, right? Now's the time to get back to it. Close this video, close YouTube, go open some papers, pick a topic right now. Pick a subject that's coming up. Go open it right now, this second, yeah? Do what I just said and get a better grade. I'll see you guys in a bit.